Sample bias is not the only thing that can throw off results if we're trying to find information about a population from a sample. There's also some things in the wording of the survey or whatever your data gathering method is that can affect results as well. Let's consider both of these examples of surveys designed to collect information about how much a person drinks, how much alcohol a person drinks in a typical week. So the first survey gives me a scale from none to more than 5. And let's just suppose that I'm a person who uh, lives a very highly functioning life and is healthy and exercises and eats well and likes to have a glass of wine with dinner every day. Looking at this first question, alcoholism and drug addiction survey, how many alcoholic drinks do you consume in a typical week? I can see that my correct answer is more than 5. But how does that make me feel answering in the most extreme category on a survey that is titled Alcoholism and Drug Addiction? And here I am. This is really Don Draper's category here, right? More than 5. This encompasses a huge, huge range of actual drinking behavior. So even though this is my correct answer, think about what I'm likely to actually do, right? What I'm likely to actually do is choose maybe the 3 to 5, maybe even the 1 or 2, depending on my mood, right? Depending maybe on whether I had a drink last night, right? This is the answer that I give. And this is not just me, of course, and this is even if it's an anonymous survey, so you can remove all possible consequences from answers and you will still get dishonest answers if the correct answer makes a person feel bad about themselves, right? So I'm more likely to give one of these answers. And what people tend to do with a scale like this one is instead of really looking at the meaning that's written, they tend to think of it as a scale of 1 to 4 and rate themselves compared to other people and answer about where they feel like they should be in comparison to other people. This is something that everybody does regardless of what the wording is on those labels. There will be a little bit of thinking about the wording when choosing between 2 answers, but you can believe that somebody like me is not likely to choose more than 5 on this survey. Now, if we look at the second survey for comparison, this one allows me to, first of all, choose day instead of week, because honestly, who wants to know what that number is per week? It always sounds worse. And it allows me to use the number 1 here, which makes me feel just great. So I'm going to answer this question honestly because it didn't make me think about where I am in a scale, for one thing, especially if I'm putting myself at an extreme. And it's allowing me, we could go further and put in per hour if we really wanted to, right? It allows me to answer this without thinking about the anchoring of myself relative to other people or relative to the expectations that were created by this survey. So this survey will give much more honest results than the first one. People will always choose answers that allow them to continue to feel good about themselves, even if the survey is anonymous. There are lots of other wording effects also and survey design issues that this can illustrate for us here. We won't master the art of survey design in this course. You could probably take a whole graduate course just on survey design. But we can see what some of the things are, again, to be on the lookout for. These are the same 2 questions, so it's not the wording of the questions, it's really in how they play out in the survey, right, in the big picture of the whole survey. How happy are you with your life in general? Very vague question, difficult for us to really answer without putting it in some sort of context first. And how many dates did you have last month? When these questions are asked in this first order, there's very little association between the answers. And that word association we haven't formally defined yet, but you can imagine that what we're saying here is that somebody rating their happiness very high isn't necessarily likely to have a higher or lower number on the second question than somebody who had rated their happiness low, right? So that there's not any way to predict the answer of the second question from the answer to the first question. When we reverse the order of these questions, we provide a context, right? So in this order, this provides a context for the second question. And what we start to see is a very strong association in these answers. Instead of just coming right out with how happy are you with your life in general and trying to get an answer, how many dates did you have last month? And we can assume that this survey is given to single people, I think. How many dates did you have last month? Oh, 0. How happy are you, right? You can imagine that there's a very, very strong positive association in this case. So a very strong positive association, what this means is somebody who had more dates was more likely to state that they are happy. I clearly can't write and talk at the same time. So what this tells us is it's not just the wording of each question that we have to be aware of, but the whole design of the survey. If a person gets the idea early on that a survey is designed to measure something, it's going to affect how they answer all of the questions in the survey. Just like in our drug and alcohol addiction example, even calling it a drug and alcohol addiction survey before asking the questions is likely to place a little bit of bias in how those answers come in. I mean, you know how that information is going to be used, right? Sounds very judgmental, even just in the title.